Hello, this is the next C-SPAN presidential debate. This is the last debate of the presidential election. I'm your moderator, David Terry. The rules are simple. Each candidate gets 1 minute opening and closing statements, 2-minute question time, and 30-second rebuttal. Sorry about that. We ask the audience to hold the pauses to a minimum as we are limited on time. To start the debate, please stand for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home and of the brave.
I'd like to point out that Representative Terry
Yes,
was
point.
DOA.
Okay, Ben McAkay, please ask the first question.
Hi. So we will start off with opening statements. So we will start off, Mr. Rabe, you can begin with your opening statement.
Thank you. First, I want to thank MexC-SPAN for hosting this. I wanted to thank all of our moderators here, and I want to thank the American people for giving me a chance to run this election. I'll keep it short here with my 5 main priorities when I'm elected president. First proposal is to sink District 7. This would mitigate climate change and help people improve economically. My second priority is to invade Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein is a human rights violator and should be replaced. My third priority is to abolish the cabinet in order to prevent bribery and encourage people to run for office. I also want to adopt Madagascar democracy, as Madagascar is a much fairer system than us. And finally, I want to bring back Hangouts on Air by requesting Google do so, and if they do not, CEO Sundar Pichai will be deported. Thank you, and I look forward to this debate.
Thank you. Next up, we have Representative Terry. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Hi, I'm Henry Terry, also known as Groper, and I'm running for president. Before I begin, I'd like to thank everyone here for attending, whether you're a fellow candidate, someone watching or attending, or a moderator. I'm running because I still see a need for change, Adam Evans has done so much good for our country, and he's done a great job, but we can do a whole lot more. I want to move our country into the direction of prosperity, where the working class can be strong, where the people can truly have a chance at society, where Americans can be free from discrimination, where the middle class isn't being crushed by an unfair tax code, where the government isn't interfering in our personal and private lives. I believe the future of our nation should be in the hands of the people, no matter what race, religion, or especially class. That is why I'm running. Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you. And finally, Secretary Tawney.
Hello, my name is Jakob Tawney. As you all know, I am the current Secretary of Defense, but that is not the only position that I've held in my career. I've been a senator, a representative, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Secretary of Transportation, a speaker, and more. During my time in the cabinet, I have dedicated my career to the people of this nation. As Secretary of Veterans Affairs, I prioritize veterans' health care over budget cuts. As Secretary of Transportation, I prioritize investing into our highways and trains instead of cutting it to spend money on wars and useless regime change. During my time as Secretary of Defense, I spent my time working with the President on ensuring that in no case do we send our young men and women into a useless war. As representative, I passed the carbon tax bill, investing into our infrastructure and creating a high-speed rail. I passed a law raising the minimum wage to at least $50,000 a year for our teachers, a long overdue pension raise. As secretary, I made sure that dental care was insured under our Obamacare system, providing care for the things that big corporations wouldn't. I also ensured that our veterans and families would have access to life-saving drugs, even if the corrupt FDA didn't want it to get passed. I've worked for the American people my whole career, and now I believe that I should have the opportunity to serve as your president. I have a vision for this country, such as tax laws for the middle class, implementing a school renovation and renewal program. I'll fix our foreign policy and make sure Russia can't pull things like this, like what they did today. I'll fix our prescription drugs programs, ensuring people have the life-saving drugs that they need, ending this shortage. I'll meet with Chairman Kim and ensure that North Korea is denuclearized and that we do it diplomatically. I'll be your voice, I'll be your legislator, I'll be your friend, and most importantly, I'll be your president.
Thank you, Secretary Tawney.
For the next question, well, I guess actually this is the first question, goes to Representative Henry Terry. Representative Henry Terry, what is your plan to reduce the unemployment rate in America?
Well, I have a simple solution to this. I think we need to invest in the middle class and our working people. For one, I'd like to invest heavily in small businesses and our, local communities. I'd like to invest in green energy and infrastructure, and I would like to invest in education. All of these things can create millions and millions of jobs while increasing the standard of living for millions more. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just getting a timer set up.
Secretary.
Okay. Next question. Okay.
Secretary.
Can I?
Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I thought what we would do. Quick interjection. I ask the round of questions, then you ask a round of questions. Like it's the same thing, but you like. Okay.
You can go ahead. Yeah, I just misunderstood. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just to let everyone know I am here.
Audience, please hold your comments to a minimum. Thank you. Okay, Secretary Jakob Tawney. Same question to you. What is your plan to reduce the unemployment rate in this country?
Hold on, I'm chewing. Okay. Well, Dave, in my term in Congress, I've already worked to create more jobs. Under just my bills alone, I've created over 10 million jobs in this country. And in my plan, my 34 pages of policy, it prioritizes tax laws for the middle class, ensuring that they do not go unemployed because they can't afford to live anymore. It creates over 200,000 new homeowners and homes by the year 2021 to allow for our unemployed and homeless to have a place to live. We're going to open up new markets for our American businesses, creating even more jobs than what I've done in my term as representative and as president Adam Evans has done. We'll keep taxes low on small businesses and on our families because that is truly how we reinvest back into the middle class. As president, I'll begin a pathway to the middle class, saying if you're homeless, if you're below the poverty wage, there is a way for you to grow, to become someone with a job, someone who can go on vacation with their family, someone who can go out and splurge every once in a while and have fun with their daughters and their sons. As your president, I will create a pathway for every single American to go to a better economic standpoint, a better social standpoint, because that is what our government should do, and that is what I will do starting on day one in my term.
Okay. And former Representative Logan Rabe, again, the same question goes to you. What would you do in your administration to reduce the unemployment rate? Because as you know, MEC is in recession right now. So what's your plan to reduce the unemployment rate?
Incorrect. We're not in a recession.
Excuse me.
I've heard that we are in a recession from some people, my friend.
Get my response.
If I may, first off, the audience must keep quiet during the debate. Thank you.
I'm here to
and
ask questions.
okay, well, regardless, next we are not in a recession.
Okay, I'm mistaken, but I have heard that the unemployment rate is somewhat high, and we do need to get it down. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Can I begin the response?
what is your plan to get, I guess, get it lower than it is already? What's your plan for job creation, getting people employed, and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, if you look at where the vast majority of unemployed people are in this country, it's in what we would call District 7, the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, these Rust Belt states that have been caused through free trade deals and other economic factors. It's been an irreversible damage to the manufacturing jobs in that area. And no matter how many times we try to renegotiate NAFTA or do something else, simply not all those jobs are going to come back. So when I'm elected president, I laid this out in my policy platform. I believe we should sink District 7 and make it part of the Great Lakes. And this would allow people to relocate to areas like the Sun Belt and other areas where job creation is high. It would allow them to get employed in these better jobs. Unemployed people could find better jobs in these areas that are growing economically. And people who are underemployed, who are maybe only working part-time and want to work full-time, they'd be able to find better jobs in these areas.
So a follow-up question for this
Rebuttal,
policy.
please. Rebuttal,
Okay,
please.
yes. Rebuttal time, 30 seconds. Let me get a timer ready. Okay. You can start. I'll just set the timer for like 25 seconds. Start.
Well, Logan, frankly, the way to fix the situation when it comes to unemployment, mainly in District 7, it's not to sink it. It's to do something about it and cause some big structural change. If you would look at my policy, Logan, you'd see that I have a plan to revitalize District 7, reinvest back into our infrastructure in the state, reinvest back into our middle class in the state. And that's why I'm proud to have been endorsed.
That is time.
Can I just finish what I was saying?
Can I respond because he mentioned me?
Yeah,
Okay.
let me just finish up really quick.
Okay.
And the National Education Association and AFSCME know that. That's why I'm proud to have their endorsements, because they know that District 7 is vital to the soul of this nation and to the workers of this nation, and I'm ready to work for them as soon as they get into the White House. And I'm not going to sink them, Logan. I'm going to help them.
Oh, okay, Logan, you may be better.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, you've been in Congress and you've been in the cabinet for many, many months. You've had plenty of time to fix this, and you have done nothing apparently because excuse me, I'm talking. Because there's still apparently huge problems here that you need to fix. You've had the opportunity to do this, and then you're going to go off topic and talk about the National Education Association. We're talking about the Rust Belt here, not education or whatever. I know you might want to change the topic because you know I'm right.
Logan,
Okay,
you're not right. You're not right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
yes,
you.
Thank you, candidates. Okay.
Thank you.
I've
Thank you,
seen no
candidates.
workers union
Thank you,
endorse.
candidates.
Thank you.
Because you can't be
Thank
trusted.
you.
No, Jacob.
Thank you.
Eminently.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Secretary Rabe. Many people have accused you of having a reckless foreign policy approach. This is because of your calls to invade Liechtenstein. How do you refute these claims?
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting question. I think really about invading Liechtenstein, that is the main part of my platform. That's correct. But I think the person who describes this best is Jakob Tawney. When he tried to get me to drop out and endorse him, he told me in PMs, quote, "Okay, I hate Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. I nuke them on day one." Logan,
we don't like jokes. We don't like
excuse
jokes,
me, I'm
dude.
talking.
We don't like
Again,
jokes.
he's interrupting.
Okay.
I'd like to
Okay,
speak.
candidate.
No one set a timer, so.
Can I? Okay.
Clearly, we don't like jokes.
I'll give you
Jokes are no such
I'm
thing.
Okay, Logan.
Return, Jacob.
Logan,
Candidates.
He's interrupting.
Logan, you may continue speaking.
Okay. So, Jacob, I guess I'll have to restart because of interruptions. But Jacob says, quote, "Okay, I hate Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. I'd nuke them on day one. Logan, trust me, 200K troops will be moved to Liechtenstein on day one." He sent that to me in PMs. And I think, I agree with him. We should invade Liechtenstein. They are a human rights violator. they have a monarchy that suppresses the democracy, and they tried to auction off the country, which would have been devastating. So I think both me and from Jacob's comments, we can agree that Liechtenstein should be invaded.
Rebuttal.
Okay, Miss
Rebuttal.
Secretary
You can do
Tawney,
rebuttal.
you have okay.
I was mentioned.
I know. Before we start, I just want to say that if you're interrupting, the audience cannot hear what the candidate answering the question has to say. So I please implore you to not do that. Thank you.
Yes.
Secretary Tawney, you have 30 seconds to respond.
It's funny that Logan brings up human rights because the only two people on this stage that have fought for human rights is me and Representative Terry. Throughout our whole careers, we prioritize human rights, standing up to Middle Eastern nations that won't fight for human rights. And clearly, Mr. Rabe doesn't know what a joke is, and probably because all his jokes aren't funny at all. But me saying those things is absolutely wrong. I'm a non-interventionist, and under my term, I will never go to war voluntarily.
Rebuttal, please. Rebuttal.
Thank you.
We're going to move on. We're going to move on.
What?
We
No,
are
one
going-
rebuttal, please.
We're going to move on.
We're going to move on.
He insulted me. He insulted me. You're not going to respond?
We are going to move on. Thank you. The next question goes to Secretary Tawney. Secretary Tawney, many people have called you a racist and a bully in this community. How do you respond to these accusations?
Well, Ben, I've apologized for my past words and actions, and I haven't said things on that racist or sexist level in about 3 months. That's why instead of focusing on that part of my history, which I'm not too proud of, I'm focusing on what my vision is. I'm focusing on what I think we can achieve, not what we can't achieve. I'm focusing on starting a pathway to the middle class. I'm focused on starting new renovation and renewal programs for our schools. I'm not focused on what I've said. I've apologized for that, and I will continue to during this campaign. I'm not focused on what I've said. I'm focused on the people, I'm focused on the policy, and I'm focused on Americans.
Thank you, Secretary.
I'd like to also respond to this. Jakob Tawney. Jakob Tawney has made
Representative Tawney.
very
Or
offensive jokes in the
Representative
past.
Terry.
What? Jakob Tawney has made
Representative-
many
yeah.
offensive jokes in the past, but we have seen him blossom and grow into a much better person. I don't think he's a racist. I don't think he's a sexist. He made these jokes that he shouldn't have, but I don't think we should hold it against him, considering how much he has grown. Thank you.
Can I respond as well?
Thank you, Gobi.
30 seconds to Secretary Rabe.
Okay, well, I absolutely do believe Jakob Tawney. If he's not racist, he has offended many people in our country. Recently, he was in the mock election chat call, and he was posing in a hijab with a Confederate flag, and mocking that kind of thing. How do you think the Muslim and African American communities are going to feel like that? In addition, he's just made all around offensive comments, and it has been in the past.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rebuttal.
Jacob,
Thank you.
rebuttal, and then we will move on. Jacob,
Thank you.
One rebuttal.
Very quickly.
Well, Representative Rabe asked me how Muslims and Africans will respond to those things, which I've already apologized for. And I've met with many people of that community, and they have said that they're forgiving me for it. Policy. My question is, Logan, Representative Rabe, how do you think our citizens feel in District 7 when you single them out and say that you want their homes, their towns to be sunk just because, you don't like their current situation, you're not going to do anything to fix it?
He's asking me a question. I should be allowed to respond.
No, we
He's
did one
asking
rebuttal each. We're moving on.
Are you being
Okay,
corruption?
Okay, so
we are moving on. Thank you. The final
Jacob
question,
is paying the African Americans to endorse it. That's the truth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no.
Thank you. The final question for this round goes to
Also, Logan made mail with black roses and
Okay,
posted
excuse
Don't let him
me.
speak. He's not allowed to
The
speak.
next person who interrupted is getting muted. The next question goes to Representative Terry. Many people have called your ideas communist-like. How do you respond to accusations such as these?
I would just like to say that nothing in my current platform is really that communistic or radical. Personally, I understand and agree with many of the roots of, socialistic and left-wing ideologies. I have my disagreements with corporatism and critiques of capitalism. However, I do 100% recognize that it's not very pragmatic at all. It's not pragmatic at all to go so far left. And that's a critique I have of many past presidents. I do understand the importance of compromise and working with people of all different ideologies. So I'm not really running, as a socialist. I'm running because I understand that we have problems that need to be solved. All right. I don't think it's pragmatic to go far left. So that's why I don't think we should go far left. And that's why I'm not running to be far left.
Thank you, Representative Terry.
Can I answer that?
No, we aren't having rebuttals. I didn't say anything. Okay.
Can I ask my questions?
Questions for
We will have town hall questions later on in this debate. Okay.
I'm a moderator of this debate as well.
No, you're not.
We're going to move on. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, Jacob, you've been a vocal critic of regime change wars, and you want an isolationist foreign policy. How do you plan to continue an isolationist, non-interventionist foreign policy, while at the same time China is threatening, at least it appears to threaten to intervene in Hong Kong, and Russia is flying fighter jets over Estonia? How do you plan to address these global issues while at the same time having a non-interventionist, isolationist foreign policy?
Well, Dave, my plan is you don't go in guns blazing, nukes running to solve a situation to save people. That's not how you liberate people. You go in, you have meetings with them, you go through a whole diplomatic process. You do trade deals, you do multiple things, and if they still aren't listening, well then you may have to do things when it comes to trade. You may have to implement tariffs, which I'm not in support of tariffs, especially in real life right now. But if they're necessary, well then they're necessary. And at the last result, if our soil is ever attacked by a foreign nation, I'm going to be a strong commander-in-chief. I will not be afraid to say, people do not have the right, foreign nations do not have the right to attack our country. That is not going to happen under my presidency. I believe in peace through strength. I'll be a commander that has peace through strength. And Russia and China and all the other countries, they are not going to dictate us. We are the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we are going to stay that way, not the land of Chinese puppets and the home of Russian diplomats. That is not what America is to me, and it's not what it will ever be under my presidency.
Can I speak?
Logan Rabe, I guess we'll ask you another
I'd like to speak about
question about your foreign policy. Would you rather work with the EU to take care of the Liechtenstein problem instead of, having U.S. intervention yourself?
Yeah, I think we can work with NATO to do this more efficiently, but I really want to touch on what Jacob said. This is a classic example of Jacob saying one thing and doing another in Congress. He talks about non-interventionism and how we should stay out of foreign conflict, but then when he's in Congress and he feels pressure to write bills, he writes bills to get involved in foreign conflicts. Take Morocco and the Western Sahara for an example. We had no involvement there. But Jacob wrote a bill in Congress that stuck our noses in the peace process and made a peace deal that's probably going to be very bad in the next, decade or so, when this peace deal that America stuck their noses in is going to backfire because we really don't know what's going on in the situation there. So that's an example of Jacob saying one thing and doing another.
I was mentioned.
That should not happen. We should not let him.
I was mentioned.
Yes. Okay. Jacob, you may rebuttal.
Well, if Logan has concerns with my foreign policy, then he has concerns with President Evans' foreign policy. President Evans said publicly that he supported my bill and he would sign it into law. I trust President Evans' judgment, and so do the American people. He won both of his elections handedly each time. So if Logan Rabe does not support the policy of foreign policy with me and President Evans, then he sure as hell doesn't support the foreign policy of the American people.
10 seconds. He insulted me.
We will give you a 10-second rebuttal starting now.
Okay, well, Jacob, he's trying to change the topic to President Evans because he knows he's wrong on this issue. He knows I'm calling him out on saying one thing and doing another, so he needs to change the topic. Don't listen to what him trying to change the topic.
Okay, thank you.
Facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We are going to move on to Representative Henry Terry. Henry Terry, you haven't really talked about foreign policy this much. You're a lot more concerned with just fighting for the American workers and some civil liberties issues. So, what exactly would be your foreign policy? How would you deal with Russia and their aggression towards Estonia?
Well, I follow what's called the just war doctrine. The just war doctrine has a few main tenets. War should be a last resort, only if all peaceful methods fail. It should be a just cause, and it's to stop an evil. There should be a probable success, so our people aren't just dying hopelessly. We must not use more force than is necessary, and we should always make sure that we're never aiming at civilians, and non-combatants are protected. So when it comes to foreign policy, I'm more of a non-interventionist, and I follow this just war doctrine because I don't believe we should stick our noses where we don't belong. I don't believe we should go into regime change wars. I believe that we should focus on improving the lives of everyone and improving diplomacy and making sure that everyone worldwide can be safe rather than just going straight in guns blazing, as Jacob Tawney put it.
Can I just add on that? This is not a rebuttal, but can I just add on?
Okay.
Representative Terry Representative Terry is absolutely correct. Me and him share basically the exact same foreign policy, thinking that war is the last resort. Under my presidency, and I'm sure we'd much rather spend money reinvesting into our schools, rebuilding them, instead of spending money tearing down schools in foreign countries.
Yes. Thank you.
I just wanted to.
Okay. 5 seconds.
Next question. We're moving on.
Okay. Thank you. The next question goes to Secretary Rabe. My question is, as president, what would you do to combat climate change?
All right. Well, I think we can start with my first policy proposal of sinking District 7. Now, despite smears from candidates like Jakob Tawney, who assume we're just going to let people die, that's not true. We're going to let people. Excuse me, I'm talking. We're going to let people relocate to other areas. But I think sinking District 7. I mean, this is a fact. It would unite the Great Lakes, and right now we're seeing across the world, lakes are being desertified, and they're being growing smaller as more water's evaporating, the water's falling down. If we unite the Great Lakes, it means that there's more water, and it's going to be more difficult for these lakes to shrink.
This is just a follow-up question. If you sink the Great Lakes, how would that necessarily create more water? Wouldn't that just make the Great Lakes more shallow?
Not necessarily, but even if it did, right? It makes a bigger lake, right? So it means that there's less surface area. It means the ratio of surface area to actual volume of the lake would change, and it would mean that
the calculations to make sure that the water level
that makes no sense.
Thank you.
No, it's because this is a complex scientific issue. I know Jacob can't understand it.
Thank you.
But I'm trying to explain it.
Thank you, Secretary Rabe. Same question goes to Representative Terry.
Thank you for the question, Mr. McKay. As president, I will fight to ensure that we can solve climate change in a cost-effective and efficient manner. I believe we should invest heavily in carbon capture and nuclear, as well as other renewable sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, and hydroelectric. I would also like to invest in cleaning up our oceans. All of these things will create millions and millions of jobs, raise the standard of living for millions, and ensure that we have a future on this earth. Personally, I am against the carbon tax. A carbon tax is burden, according to many economists. The burden would fall on lower income households. Another thing is that many countries with a carbon tax, there hasn't been much done when it comes to reducing carbon emissions. I believe Tulsi Gabbard, in fact, pointed out that in countries with a carbon tax, carbon emissions didn't go down, and in many cases it went up. So I'm not for a carbon tax. Thank you.
All right. Same question to Secretary Tawney.
Well, moderators and American people, I'm the only one on this stage that has actually taken action in Congress to combat climate change. I am the author of the carbon tax bill, which is a tax on big corporations to make sure that they aren't polluting our air. And that money goes into a lockbox, which has now enabled America to become one of the most advanced countries when it comes to infrastructure, continues to build new high-speed rails, continues to create millions and millions of new jobs. So, in my opinion, carbon tax is useful, it's resourceful, and it's economically and environmentally not smart. We've seen the results of this carbon tax, and
Okay, thank you.
and as
Thank
I'm not,
you.
let me just finish up. And as president, I'll take this further. I'll meet with my cabinet members of Congress to invest into carbon capture and to finally put climate change to an end in this century.
Okay. So I guess we'll. I don't think Representative Henry Terry has started for any of the questions, so we'll give him this question to answer first. This has been an issue that's been brought up by Mish, a voter from Idaho. He has submitted this to this debate. So his question is, Representative Henry Terry, do you support buying Greenland?
Do I support buying Greenland? Not really. No. It depends on the cost. I don't really see the point to it. It would be expensive. It would waste resources that we need. It really wouldn't do much to help anyone. So I don't support buying Greenland.
Okay, and the next question, Logan Rabe, would you support buying Greenland? Maybe this would be a good base for invading Liechtenstein.
Yeah, well, I think buying Greenland is actually a very good investment. Just look at the returns we got from Alaska. We bought Alaska for very cheap, and now it's a very valuable state. And buying Greenland will also give us more claims in the Arctic, which would help as the Arctic starts to melt. But I think in order to pay for this, we could sell some of our own country. We have a lot of French Canadians in the north of Maine, north of Vermont, north of New Hampshire. I think we can sell that area to Canada, as the people would probably fit in very well in provinces like Quebec, and then we can use that money to buy Greenland, which is a much better investment than some of those areas.
And Tawney, do you support buying Greenland?
Well, I sincerely do not know why Logan Rabe is proposing getting rid of American people. First, he wants to sink and kill off communities where history of this nation was founded, where the Industrial Revolution was prominent. And then now he wants to sell our land to Canada. Folks, where is it going to stop with the trying to get rid of American citizens? I want American legal citizens in here. I want more Americans in here. I don't want to sell them off to a foreign nation. And when it comes to buying Greenland, it would have to be an extremely good deal for us to do that. It would cost a lot of money to industrialize the area, immigrate people over there, stuff like that. So it'd have to be an absolutely fantastic deal for us to purchase Greenland.
Rebuttal, he insulted me.
Yes.
Okay, well, Jacob, coming from you, you're going to talk about me. When you talk about when you go to hotels that have Qurans, you burn them down, and at hotels when there's Bibles, you look in them for money. And in addition, you tried to get me to give you Jasper's mother's phone number so that you could make her cry, right? So I really don't think you're the one who should be claiming the moral high ground here.
Okay,
right. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Moderator.
No, he cannot speak. That's the rules. He needs to play outside the rules to win. He knows if he plays by the rules, he's going to lose.
I'm being
Okay,
interrupted.
I'll be right back, Ben Mekka.
10 seconds. Okay, 10 seconds.
In season 21, my election launch was actually in the Islamic Center of America. I met with a lot of Muslims, and you know what, Logan? I understand them. And what I said was a joke.
Thank you.
Clearly, you don't understand jokes. I've apologized for that joke. But
All right.
we need
Thank
to
you.
Like when your
American
presidential campaign slogan was Allah Akbar. I remember that.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Jakob Tawney. Actually, this is a perfect direction that we're going, and believe it or not, with this next question. We've kind of touched on it a little bit.
I have to go. I do have to go. Ben Mekka, you take over.
All right, thanks. This next question goes to Jakob Tawney to start it off. So there is a big controversy in the United States, and it has existed for quite a while, whether the Confederate flag should be allowed to be displayed on state grounds. Jacob, Tawney, in the past, you have used the Confederate flag in posts. You have used them, in pictures and in this community. What is your stance on this issue? 2 minutes.
First of all, I apologize for that. And it wasn't my own Confederate flag, it was my grandmother's. She's really conservative. So, when it comes to displaying Confederate flags on state grounds, I believe that we're Americans. We're not Southerners. We're not Northerners. We are Americans. And sure, it might have been fine to display the Confederate flag at a state house or other state capitol buildings in the governor's mansion. But it's the 21st century, folks. We are a United States of America, and I intend on keeping it that way as president. So when it comes to displaying Confederate flags on things like governor's mansions and state capitals, I would not support that. But if you want to have the right to putting up a Confederate flag on your own private property, that is none of the government's business to determine whether or not you should be able to put whatever you want on your private property, as long as it's within city code laws. So I've apologized for those statements, and that is what I believe when it comes to displaying the Confederate flag.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Secretary Rabe. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, that's nice. Well, I think, Jacob, I don't care how many times he's apologized. The fact is that very recently he was in the Met Call, with a Confederate flag and a hijab and waving his 2020 Gillibrand signs around. Like, that is deeply offensive. I don't care how many times you apologize. That's something you can't just overlook. And yes, Jacob, you have made many very offensive jokes. Like, I understand if you apologize, but you still made them, right? It matters what the original statement is, even if you apologize. So
rebuttal.
Continue.
Yes. Okay. And to answer the question, yes, I do not support Confederate flags on state buildings. I think you should have your state flag and the federal flag. I don't see the need to have a Confederate flag. Thank you.
Rebuttal.
Thank you. We're going to go to Representative Terry first, actually.
And then my rebuttal.
Yes, you can have a rebuttal, Jacob.
All right.
Representative Terry, 2 minutes.
All right. I don't think states should put it on their state property. I think it's pretty disrespectful to do so. However, I think this is an issue that should be left up to the states. I don't see why the federal government needs to do this and enforce this law. I think it should be completely left up to the states. I would support some sort of incentive or condemnation of putting it on state property, but it shouldn't be enforced because it's states' rights. I support the idea of states' rights. Now, I understand that the Confederate flag is very evil. I think it is. It has a terrible history behind it, and if you disagree, I think you're just ignorant about history. But I do think that's it should be up to the states to put it on their property. However, we should incentivize and condemn states who do.
Thank you, Representative Terry. Secretary Tawney, you have a rebuttal. 30 seconds.
I'd just like to point out that Representative Rabe has laughed at these comments, and he even put blackface on Grover's running mate, which offended many African Americans. So instead of calling me out on my past, which I've apologized for, he should apologize for his own damn actions and actually apologize for those.
All right.
No, he just accused me. He that's insulting, and that's
yes. Okay. I'm just going to say before we continue. First off, Secretary Tawney, we're going to try and, I know it's not too much of a curse and some people might not be offended by it, but this is a presidential debate and we are going to try and not use words that may offend some people listening. The rebuttal that you wanted, Secretary Rabe, you may have it for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jacob, you clearly don't understand this issue. When I did that was as a joke, first of all, and you complain about me not being able to take a joke. How about you look at your own actions in this debate? And second of all, Jacob, that you still have you apologize for doing these Confederate flag things, and then you keep doing them. You don't learn
Incorrect.
from when you do these things. I'm talking.
Incorrect.
I'm talking.
30 seconds.
You don't learn from these incidents.
Thank you.
I'm going to be asking the next question.
Yes,
Thank you.
Kenneth, go ahead.
Thank you, madam. This will be a direct question to Mr. Logan Rabe. Logan, you have called out the Secretary of Defense, Jakob Tawney, on his previous actions and comments about what you've described racist or discriminating a certain group, but your actions, which Jacob has apologized, as we all have heard, and millions of Americans who are hearing and listening to this debate right now, they've heard the secretary apologize. But when the blackface matter came up to you, you apologized, but you called Jacob for apologizing late. So can you comment that this is a hypocrisy on your part or not?
It is not a hypocrisy. When I said Jacob, I didn't say Jacob was apologizing late. What I said is that Jacob apologizes for doing something racist, and then immediately after that does something racist. It's a repetitive cycle. You can't trust him anymore because of this. He says he won't do it again, and then he does it again. This is a repetitive cycle that he continuously does it. So if we can't trust him here, I don't think we should be able to trust him to make him president.
Okay, before the secretary gets to his rebuttal, but Logan, as far as I can remember, you have done somewhat equivalent to what the secretary has done. I don't know if you can remember well, but I've
really are you accusing me of doing what Jacob has done? Jacob. He asked Aaron
I never said
to make an election night projection of gun trap defeats Ricky Adams. I have never done such thing. I am nowhere near that.
I have not accused you about that.
Unlike Jacob, I do not send certain pictures of now banned members of the mock election community into the mech chat and make jokes about it. I am nowhere near that level on controversy. Jacob has far exceeded anything I could have ever done.
Rebuttal, madam.
Okay, Secretary Tawney, you may have your 30-second rebuttal.
I really don't think we need to keep allowing Secretary Rabe to keep attacking on personal things. Let's actually talk about policy and how we'll be able to put food on the table for American citizens, how we'll be able to reinvest into infrastructure, reinvest into schools. Let's talk about our plans for America. Our plans which don't get rid of entire states and districts, but plans that add to create new families, new communities in those districts. I am nowhere near Secretary Rabe when it comes to our policies because he is a warmongering,
That's 30.
anti-democratic, anti-American.
Okay, if you just
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to
And he wants to start another world war.
Thank you.
Clearly lying about me and insulting me.
Excuse me.
You guys have no, you are not. May I just remind you guys of the rules? Each candidate gets one rebuttal per round. If you have used your rebuttal and you may like to respond to another candidate, we are not going to go down that rabbit hole.
I didn't use a rebuttal. You guys asked me a question, Jacob responded. I still have a rebuttal to use.
I was getting to you. Thank you. Secretary Rabe, you have not used a rebuttal, and Representative Terry, you have not used a rebuttal. I was referring to prior rounds. Thank you. So you get one rebuttal per round. Now, Secretary Rabe, if you'd like to use your rebuttal, go ahead.
Okay, I will go ahead.
I apologize for interrupting, Kenneth. I just had to lay down the law a little bit.
No problems, madam. Secretary, you may speak.
Yes. So Jacob, this is another example of him saying one thing and doing another. He was just talking about how, too many insults, not enough policy, and okay. And then he goes and starts calling me anti-American, a warmonger, an imperialist, all these insults. Like, Jacob, which is it? Or do you want to be insulting this debate, or do you want to talk about policies? Because I can do either.
Moderators, I just like to say that I'm going to be focusing on policy the remainder
He
of
already
this
used his
debate.
rebuttal. No.
Hey,
He
Thank
already
you.
used his rebuttal.
Okay.
And
Thank
I'm
you
just
both.
saying.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
both.
thank you. I will be moving on to the next question, and this question will go to all of the candidates here on the stage.
Why is my
Representative,
grandmother in the call?
Representative Terry, from this recent event, revolving about Chairman Kim Jong Un from North Korea and his previous actions about threatening that he can strike Guam at any moment, demanding the U.S. to withdraw troops from the DNZ and nearby naval forces. How do you respond, and what can you do to resolve this issue?
Well, the best way to resolve this issue with North Korea, I'm sorry. The best way to resolve this issue with North
I don't see what's funny.
no, it's just
My grandma's in the call because of Aaron.
She the one that with the Confederate flag.
Okay, now you're just insulting my family.
Thank you.
okay. Can I
You said that, not me.
Continue. Thank
Excuse
you.
me.
all right.
Excuse
The
me.
best way to solve the issue with Kim Jong Un is not to just throw more sanctions or throw more troops. It's to talk to him directly and meet with him directly, hear what he wants, and work with him to, demilitarize. Or denuclearize rather. I don't think we should go in there and give him the same, more sanctions, more troops. That doesn't help. That makes it worse. So that's why, as president, I would like to work with Kim Jong Un and North Korea to denuclearize and demilitarize the DMZ.
Okay, thank you, Representative Terry. Secretary Tawney, you are the Secretary of Defense under the Evans administration. With this
Correct.
recent event that I have just laid out a couple of seconds ago, what will you do as president to resolve this issue with Chairman Kim Jong Un?
Well, first, right after this debate, I'm headed right onto a plane to get on a call with President Evans to talk about these situations happening overseas because I have the stamina to take on issues like this, no matter how hard they are, no matter how large they are. I'm ready to get out there and I'm ready to fix them. I'm ready to work with other countries on day one. My opening statement, I said I would love to visit and go see Chairman Kim, talk to him about how we can demilitarize his country and protect the people within these countries. Because when we militarize, when we allow North Korea to do these things, they're not only putting our citizens in danger in other countries, they're putting their own citizens in danger. So I'd also like to somehow negotiate UN forces or human rights campaign, not human rights campaign, UN human rights people to go in and inspect the situations that are happening in North Korea to really see what is happening behind the most secretive country in the world. So I'll be able to get things done like this with Chairman Kim because I've been a fighter for non-intervention, and Chairman Kim knows that my whole career. I'm not going to go in guns blazing against him. I'm going to go in on a plane and meet with them.
Okay, thank you, Secretary. Secretary Rabe, the same question goes to you.
Yeah, well, Jacob wants to brag about being a non-interventionist, so again, I'm going to mention about how he says one thing and does another. He's going to talk about being non-interventionist, but in Congress, we know, and we've talked about this, that he's going to go and get involved in foreign conflicts and ruin whatever their conflict that's going on 10 years down the line. But besides that, I really think when we talk about this issue, I think our priorities are all wrong here. We don't really ever, I don't think we should be dealing with North Korea. I think we should be dealing with another country, Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein, they've committed many bad things, like they have a monarchy that's vetoing the laws made by the people. And the monarch had to, threaten the people in order to stay in power through another referendum. And Liechtenstein tried to auction their country off for rent, which put their people in danger. I think we do need action here, and I'm sad that the moderators won't be asking any questions about this.
I'd like to rebuttal.
Very quickly.
I'd just like to say that Secretary Rabe's plan to invade Liechtenstein is a violation of the Monroe Doctrine, which would practically start a next world war. So I'm not going to comment anymore on his plans, his useless plans to do that. I'd just like to point out that doing this would start a new world war and would send our country into ruin.
Yeah, can I respond because he just made a false
Very
statement?
quickly.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Monroe Doctrine, Jacob. The Monroe Doctrine really has not been in effect for the past 50 years. We've invaded Iraq, Afghanistan, all these different countries that are not, I can tell you that they're definitely not in the Western Hemisphere. So if you're going to be going, and I know you like to talk about things that are 200 years old, but if you want to, but clearly you've
Time's
shown
up.
that you cannot move into the modern day with your policy.
Thank you, Secretary. Ben,
Thank
you can go.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask 4 questions or 5 questions. I apologize. It's just going to be a yes or no. All right. So, listeners out there, pay attention. This is going to go pretty quickly. Hopefully, I'm not looking for an elaboration. I'm just asking for a yes or no answer. Secretary Rabe, do you support closing the gun show loophole?
No.
Representative Terry, do you support closing the gun show loophole?
No.
Secretary Tawney, same question.
No.
Okay. The next question. Should the size of ammunition clips be restricted? Secretary Rabe.
No.
Representative Terry
No.
and Secretary Tawney.
Yes.
Secretary Rabe, do you support increased penalties for straw purchases and gun trafficking?
Yes for plastic straws, no for gun trafficking.
Representative Terry
Yes.
and Secretary Tawney.
No on the plastic straws. Yes on gun trafficking.
Wait, just to clear something up, yes, no for plastic straws.
All right. And I'm sorry, what?
To let you guys know, the ballots are out. The ballots are out. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next one. What about loopholes that allow people to buy guns online without a criminal? Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. Do you support loopholes that allow people to buy guns online without a criminal background check? Secretary Rabe.
Yes.
Representative Terry.
Do you mean banning loopholes? Allow?
Do you support these loopholes, and will you ban them? Basically, yes.
Well, I will ban them. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Tawney.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry. One of my family members walked in.
It's all good. Do you support banning loopholes that allow people to buy guns online without a criminal background check?
Yes, I do.
And the final one of these questions, Secretary Rabe, do you support banning bump stocks? The ban of bump stocks?
No.
Representative Terry
Yes.
and Secretary Tawney.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Kenneth, were you wanting to ask a question or?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this time we will start with Secretary Rabe. From the events of what has happened, with the continuous event of Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Yemen has reported to have more than 14 million people starving. Saudi Arabia continues their ongoing war. And this is a humanitarian crisis, having 14 million people and the bleak of starvation. As president, what would you do to address this issue and help the Yemen government?
Okay, well, I know some of my opponents might claim to be non-interventionist and be interventionist on this issue, but I'm going to be non-interventionist consistently. We should not get involved in Yemen. Yemen is for the Yemeni people. America is for the American people. It's not our problem. If Yemen has a problem with Saudi Arabia, they should sort that out, not us. We should not be sticking our noses into foreign conflicts. The UN can do whatever it wants, but America should not be involved. Thank you.
Okay. Secretary Tawney, your response.
Under my administration, in no way will my cabinet, me will ever support an invasion of Yemen or assisting any country in taking over Yemen or violating their human rights. It's a disgrace if anyone would like to go into a foreign country or assist people to go into a foreign country and take them over. That is not what our founding fathers wished for, and that is not what I wish for. As president, I'll take action against countries that try to do that, especially on Yemen, to keep peace in the Middle East. And hopefully one day these Yemeni conflicts can no longer exist and we can live in a world of peace.
Okay, thank you, Secretary. Representative Terry, your response.
Well, in fact, I just proposed a resolution condemning Saudi Arabia for what they've been doing to Yemen, and among other things. I think we should condemn Saudi Arabia, and we should push for humanitarian aid to the Yemeni civilians to make sure that they can, to make sure that they don't have to, so 14 million people don't starve. I think we shouldn't, keep giving weapons and having these weapon deals with Saudi Arabia. That's why I presented a resolution today to condemn and to stop these weapons deals with Saudi Arabia.
Okay, thank you. Ben, do you want to?
Yeah. All right. So this question will go to Representative Terry. We'll start with him. So recently, it's come to the attention of some that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has stated that Britain will not recognize CUFTA 3, that's the third version of the CUFTA agreement, or the Anglo-American Trade Agreement. How will you, as president, address this issue?
Well, I would like to talk with the Prime Minister of the UK. We need to expand trade when we can. We need fair, free trade. And if there's a provision in CUFTA that, or any sort of trade deal that we're in that they don't like, I would like to work with them to solve this issue.
Thank you. Secretary Tawney, same question to you.
Sorry, can you repeat? My family members love to interrupt. Repeat, please.
Sorry. The question was, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has stated that Britain will not recognize the third version of CUFTA, or any version of CUFTA for that matter, or the Anglo-American Trade Agreement. How will you address this issue as president?
Well, I'll definitely work with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and of Canada and any other UN NATO recognized countries to draft trade agreements to get the American economy back on track and other countries' economies, to add millions of more new jobs, to show that America has a policy that we are willing to work with any nation to draft trade agreements, trade deals that will benefit us together, because America needs to be a place where we're open. We're not going to be isolationist when it comes to trade deals. We're going to open our doors. We're going to open our hands and say we'll work with anyone to allow a trade policy that will work for all of us.
Just very quickly. So specifically, though, what will you do if the Prime Minister pulls out of this deal or gets that passed?
If the Prime Minister continues to not agree with CUFTA, is that what you mean?
No, if so, the Anglo-American Trade Agreement with the United States and the UK, if the UK does indeed pull out of that agreement, as they've said that they will, what will your response be? Secretary Tawney?
I'm still not understanding. Are you saying if they pull out of CUFTA?
Yes. Okay. So not. I'm sorry if I'm
Do you
saying
want me
this
to
wrong.
explain to him, Ben?
Okay. So CAFTA is the agreement with Canada. There is another agreement, the Anglo-American Trade Agreement with the United States and the UK. He is threatening to pull out of both. If he in fact does pull out of the Anglo-American Trade Agreement, how will you respond to that as president?
We'll have to move forward, and hopefully we can get him back. Hopefully we can entice him to join back into the agreement, because our countries are stronger together when we work together. But if he refuses still not to, then we will have no option but to move on and try to get other nations to join in on our Anglo-American agreement in CUFTA.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Rabe, same question to you.
Okay. Well, I think we can just, if they want to pull out, that's their decision. Their economy will suffer if they pull out, and they're going to see the consequences of that. And thankfully, unlike Liechtenstein, Britain is a democracy, and their people, if the economy is doing poorly, they will repeal and replace their government. Now, I think when we're talking about who's the most qualified, Jacob, it just took you like a minute to be explained about what exactly is going on in foreign policy. I don't see, how is that, you're not very knowledgeable about that, about our relations with one of our greatest allies. Like, how is that qualification to be president?
Okay.
I've explained multiple times that's because my family was interrupting and I did not correctly understand the question. So there's no reason for a useless attack there, Representative Rabe. Let's focus on the policy.
I'd love for us to focus on the policy, but unfortunately, you need to be explained to you.
Thank you. All right. The next question is about the death penalty. This is a straightforward question. Do you support it, and why or why not? That goes to Representative Terry.
No, I do not support the death penalty. Why? Because 4% of people on death row are usually innocent, or 4% of people on death row are innocent. So I don't want to risk that we are killing. I don't want to risk killing an innocent person.
All right. Secretary Rabe, same question to you.
I do not think the death penalty is morally right. I don't think the government should be allowed to kill people. There are many better punishments than the death penalty, and we should explore those as an option.
And Secretary Tawney. Secretary Tawney, same question to you.
Sorry, my phone was glitching. The question was. What was it?
The question was, do you support the death penalty, and why or why not?
I do not morally nor legislatively support the death penalty, because it is not the government's place to decide who gets to be killed or not, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. Kenneth, can I ask a question, because this is one that I really want to ask?
Sure.
I'll be very quick.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. So this question, obviously, once you hear it, you'll know why I'm asking it. I've had in the United States, I've played I've played a part in this issue. So here's the question. It's pretty straightforward. As president, if Congress admitted some of our United States territories into the Union as states, would you sign that legislation granting them admission? And why or why not? Secretary Rabe.
Yes. Let me just 1 second. Well, I think all of our territories should become states. I actually had a role in this issue where when Puerto Rico was being integrated, I offered to make electoral maps that had Puerto Rico included. Now, Ben, I know you confused Puerto Rico and Jamaica when you tried to make yours, but that's a separate issue. I think we should include all territories into our country, including even minor outlying islands like the Palmyra atoll in the Pacific Ocean, the Johnson Atoll, Midway Islands, Wake Islands, all that, all should be states. We need like at least 100, I think, because that's how many senators we have.
I just want to say Jamaica and Puerto Rico, they're both very small. So the
Like your
same,
area.
the next question goes, or the
Sorry,
same question. It's all good. The Secretary Tawney, the same question goes to you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So
Sorry, this is a constant thing. It's
it's
just
all good. It's all
good.
good. We all have busy lives. So the question is, we've seen Puerto Rico admitted as a state. We've seen the discussion on whether to admit the District of Columbia as a state, but something that hasn't been brought up as much is whether the current U.S. territory should be granted statehood. As president, if Congress passes if Congress admits them into the Union, will you sign that legislation?
I'm the only
Why
one
or
on
why
the
not?
stage. I'm the only one on the stage that has taken action on territory rights in Congress. I wrote the bill originally with then Representative Bates, which would allow our territories to go into their own House and Senate districts, be near the closest one, and actually give them representation in Congress. I'm so glad that I was a supporter of this Puerto Rico bill. I'm so glad that it got passed. And now more than ever, we need to admit these territories into the United States. And I would consider the District of Columbia as well, because they are American citizens too. And anyone who disagrees with that is not looking at basic facts. So, yes, I definitely would support territory representation and for territories becoming states.
And the same question goes to Representative Terry.
Of course, they should be admitted into the Union. You know, they have played a great role in our country's history, and I think that they deserve a seat in Congress. Thank you.
All right. Kenneth, do you have a question to ask, or do you want me to ask another one?
Yes. Thank you very much, Senor. I thank you for this. All right. So first and foremost, before I ask my question, how are you guys doing tonight? How are you guys feeling or holding up?
I'm
Me
good.
good.
I'm good. How are you?
Me good.
That's good. That's good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. So this question, give me 1 second. This question will go to Representative Terry. In the Midwest, there has from this in real life. You are from Michigan, so you know how roads look like. In the Midwest, there is a lot of still damaged infrastructure. The roads, tunnels, bridges, they all still need proper funding for it to be reconstructed, rebuilt, or even possibly renewed. Every year, millions of Americans end up paying nearly thousands of dollars to repair their cars. As president, what would you do to fix the infrastructure problem, mainly in the Midwest, or a plan to tackle it nationwide? What would you do as president?
All right, thank you for the question. Although we've made many strides when it comes to infrastructure and MEC, I think we can definitely always do better. I would like to create some sort of office or such to identify areas with very, very bad infrastructure and low-grade infrastructure. And I'd like to invest billions and billions and billions into these areas, and a lot of that money will be recouped back because of how the taxation system works in MEC with the rental value tax that we just reinstated. All that money will come right back to us, so we won't really have to even worry about the cost. So yeah, I do think we should invest billions and billions into our infrastructure. It will do a lot. It'll create millions of jobs. It will prevent, like you said, it will prevent millions of people from having to, repair their cars and such, or taxpayers having to deal with all that. And so I do think we should invest a lot more into our infrastructure, especially in Michigan and the Midwest, where roads are very terrible.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Terry. Secretary Tawney, what would you do as president to present a well infrastructure package for the United States?
Well, I've already taken action on this issue in Congress. As you know, now have. Sorry, I just received a call. We now have high-speed rails in MEC because
Same.
of the legislation that I made. But roads are definitely a huge problem. I'm willing to work with members of Congress and in my cabinet to fix our roads. I think Governor Whitmer in Michigan has done a great job on prioritizing fixing the roads. I think we should have that nationwide. As president, I'd also be interested in opening up a sub-department under the Department of Transportation to see what it would be like to invest into things like that and into fixing our roads, because it's definitely a big problem that faces millions of Americans.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Tawney. Secretary Rabe, what would you do as president?
I think that the issue of cars in repairing cars is a very impactful issue for many Americans because at the end of the day, rich or poor, almost every American owns a car, and you're gonna have to pay for repairs. But I think I think it would be much more efficient if we look at new and bold ideas on this issue, and I think when I'm elected president in my first term, by the end of the term, we will have flying cars. And this may sound like a big vision, but really it's much closer than we think. And I think we will save so much money in infrastructure costs and maintaining roads, and the people will save so much money because you won't have roads damaging cars and such. That it's a very worthwhile investment and something I would look forward to when I'm elected.
Okay, this will be my last question of the night, and I will be handing it over to Ben. So this question will start with Secretary Tawney. Secretary Tawney, as president, what would you do to help American farmers compete more in the global market and basically progress the farmers here in America? So, as president, what would you do to help the American farmers?
Just today I've been I'd like to point out that Representative Rabe just called me on my cell phone, so that's why I was on mute. But today it was.
I will ask the secretary to stop.
No proof.
Representative
No
Rabe
proof.
continues to call me.
No proof.
I'd like to finish.
Okay.
Oh, now Jacob's calling me. I guess you have to kick him out of the debate.
Okay. Can I just say very, very quickly, you guys, obviously it's just a mock election community, but you guys are running for the highest position in this community. And I am not blaming anyone. I'm saying in general that you guys should step up to that model and try and hold it. So that's basically what I want to say. So let's try and keep this a little mature. Thank you. Secretary Tawney, go ahead.
Yes, Ben. First of all, I'm up to that model because I'm one of the most effective legislators in MAC, which means that I'm actually working for people, not.
I never singled anyone out.
No, I'm just saying this. Not calling people during debates when they're trying to give policy answers. As I was saying, I hope my time was restarted after that. But
Yes.
I was proud to be endorsed today by the United Farm Workers of America Union, as was posted today, as well as the AFSCME Union. But when it comes to farmers' rights, it's one of my biggest priorities. It comes in my rural reinvestment package that I will propose as president to invest back into our farmers. And I'm the author of the Ethanol Enhancement Act, which legalizes ethanol year-round in America, bringing in millions and millions of dollars in new jobs, especially in the Midwest in states like Iowa and Wisconsin and Illinois. So I'm glad to have met so many citizens, so many patriots from areas like Iowa who tell me that they need help from the government when it comes to subsidies on corn, ethanol, and reinvestment programs back into the rural areas. That's why I have the courage, the stamina to stand up and say that we're going to reinvest back into rural areas, and we're going to bring big ideas back to rural areas where they may not be the most open-minded, but in the end, they're going to be grateful, and they're going to have a huge result when it comes to their product output and their profits.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Rabe, your response.
All right. Well, first of all, Jacob made up a baseless claim about me somehow calling him during the debate. See, he says we're talking about attacking
Oh my
he
God.
starts attacking me. Unlike him, I actually have proof here. Ready? We're gonna go into my phone app, and there's
All right.
no recent calls to
You
him.
call me
So
under no
he has.
caller
Excuse
ID.
me, I'm talking.
All
So
right.
there's no proof. There's no proof to his claims. I have.
Can
I
you
have
please
proof that-
address? Okay. Can we just please stay on topic? Can you please answer his question?
Well,
Thank
okay,
you.
you should tell that to Jacob because he's the one attacking me.
I don't think that the last question, please correct me if I'm wrong, was about who called who. I don't
Okay.
care. Let's answer the question.
Can you
Thank
repeat the
you.
question?
Kenneth, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay. Representative Terry, your response.
I care about farmers.
moment.
Okay, I care about farmers. That's why
You're legit just gonna
as
skip me.
president, I will fight for farmers. As trade rep, I work to make trade fair, and I'll do it again. I will push to make trade fair with farmers, especially in regard with Canada, with the supply management system that they have in Canada, where they can effectively put tariffs on our dairy goods. I would like to work with Canada to get rid of the supply management system. I will also push to end unfair market practices done by big agricultural companies such as Monsanto. And I will push for tax cuts and subsidies for smaller farmers. Thank you.
Monsanto's good though.
All right, thank you, Ben.
All right. So this is a pretty straightforward question, but I want your detailed answer, please. So, what is your detailed stance on the practice of abortion? When should it be legal, and why? Representative Terry, you go first.
So personally, I am pro-life. However, legally, I recognize that it would be very hard to ban some sort of abortion. I think an abortion ban just wouldn't work. I'm pro-choice legally up to 20 weeks. I think that past 20 weeks, it should be only for exceptions. That's because I believe the fetus can feel pain past 20 weeks. That's when it can start to feel pain. So yeah, pro-choice up to 20 weeks. Thank you.
Same question to Secretary Tawney.
Pro-choice up to 20 weeks as well.
Okay. Secretary Rabe.
Yes, I am pro-choice up to 20 years.
Yes.
All
We have
right.
an overpopulation problem in this world, and that's one way to deal with it.
Oh, okay. Kenneth, are you going to ask another question, or do you have to go?
No, I think that's all for me today.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. The next. Okay. May I just say I am going to start asking some of Ivor's questions, but this is only because I.
Oh my
can't get a hold.
God.
Well, listen. I can't get a hold of him. So, and I don't know if he's going to come on and moderate or what. Did he have the wrong? Anyways, I'll ask one of them and then we'll see what happens. But I'm asking one of his questions. Okay, so we know that there is an existing pay gap between the genders and ethnicities in this country. However, the question still remains how impactful it is. And what are you planning to do about it as president? So what steps do you want to make as president to ensure that equal work is turned into equal pay in this country, regardless of anything else? That question goes to Secretary Rabe.
Well, you're talking about closing the wage gap. I think we should open it back up. I think our country was in a much better place in the 60s and 70s before our morals got degraded. And now look where we are now, where we have, young men in this country who are, going in on mass shooting rampages and other really deplorable activities.
Okay.
I think we
With
should,
all due respect, what does that have to do with
because I
the
think we should
wage
respect our
gap?
traditions, and we should do what works and not what doesn't work.
Okay. All right then. Representative Terry, same question to you.
Thank you for the question. I find this issue very serious. I understand the pay gap, and I understand how there are many negative effects of it. Something proposed by a candidate running for New York's 12th district, I believe, in real life. I forget her name. She is proposing that all companies, disclose salary ranges, so people will know if they're being paid less or more due to their gender or race. There, I would also support some sort of mandatory program where companies have to release the pay gap between the different races and genders in their own company. But also, we have to look at the wealth gap too. By 2052, I believe it is, the average net worth of African Americans will be roughly zero. And I know Ben McAkay here has made great strides to it with his baby bonds program, which would help decrease the racial wealth gap. I would like to expand on that by creating a plan proposed by Marianne Williamson, a federal savings account where the government matches how much you put in depending on your income. Thank you.
And Secretary Tawney.
Definitely, I believe the wage gap is a huge problem, especially in real life. So I'm definitely going to work to close it. I'm going to appoint. I'm going to have many advisors when it comes to the issue of things regarding women's rights, like the pay gap. It is not fair that we are considered a nation with vast amount of civil rights, vast amount of human rights.
Secretary Tawney?
I was just called again, not by Logan, but by someone else.
All right, fair enough. Go ahead.
But it's a shame how we're considered an icon when it comes to human and civil rights and gender rights, yet we still have a wage gap in this country. As president, I will end the wage gap, and I will put women's rights on the front line of my agenda.
Can I just point out that it's already illegal to pay a man and a woman different for the same work? Like that's already a law that's existed for a long time.
I was just asking the question, but I wasn't implying one way.
I know. I'm talking about the other candidates' answers that imply that it's still legal to do that.
Okay. Well, we are going to move on. The next question. So I just read. Ivor apparently is not going to be moderating. He just wrote up the questions that we were supposed to use. So
Jesus, select two, Ben. Those shits are gonna be long.
Huh?
Select two questions from his. Those shits are gonna be long.
Yeah. I'm just gonna. I don't give a shit. So here's the question. The most widely reported. Okay, so this is one of the longer ones. So just listen. The most widely reported negative impact from increasing minimum wages is an expected increase in unemployment. This is derived from classic economic theories as early as the 1970s and is generally supported by empirical research. However, this prediction was challenged in the 1990s by Card and Kruger, who argued that the minimum wage can increase and can actually diminish unemployment. These findings are still widely challenged. Despite this, most data shows that if we adjust the minimum wage by rates of inflation, we can actually see, theoretically speaking, it hasn't risen in around half a century. So how do you see the issue of minimum wage, and what would you do about it if you were elected as our next president? And I would also just like to ask, to start off your answers, could you just give us the amount that you support as a minimum wage? Secretary Rabe, you go first.
$100. Libertarians often say, "Oh, you want a $15 minimum wage? Why not $100?" And I agree. Why not $100 minimum wage? Our country is already losing a tremendous amount in trade deficits, and the easiest way to devalue the currency to get us competing with the rest of the world would be to increase the minimum wage, which would then devalue our currency because it would increase inflation, and we would have to print more money. So I support a $100 minimum wage. I think that would be the best decision for the country.
All right. Secretary Tawney. Secretary Tawney.
Sorry, I just got called again by Contentions. I am the author of the legislation that would raise our national minimum wage to $12.50 an hour, and I am proud of that. And it would also increase it yearly and adjust to inflation and things like that. But it was about time that we recognize it's time for fair pay for fair work. For too long, this nation and our workers of this nation have had to undergo low wages and long hours of working. That is not what a country that prides itself on civil and human rights would do. And I am proud to have led this, to get this passed through Congress pretty much unanimously, and to finally reinvest back into our middle class, back into our poverty level people in this nation, and to raise the wage.
All right, thank you. Did we get Representative Terry?
No.
I can't remember. Okay, sorry, I apologize. Representative Terry, same question to you.
$15 minimum wage is what I support. I recently helped write a bill with Dave Terry that increased the minimum wage to, I believe, $14.50. I think it should be $15. You mentioned job loss, and while I do think job loss is a reasonable question and concern, let's take Seattle, for example. Seattle implemented a $15 minimum wage a year or two ago, and their unemployment rate has continued to go down. It's 2.6% right now. Along with that, I do think that small businesses and medium-sized businesses could potentially face troubles with paying for a $15 minimum wage. So because of that, I support tax cuts and subsidies and grants to small businesses to cover the costs of minimum wages and such. So I do support a $15 minimum wage. Thank you.
All right. The next question is this. Mech's economy has had its ups and downs in the past, but at the moment, it seems to be in good health. It's actually growing. I don't know what Dave was talking about earlier, to be honest. However, in the past, for example, under the Bush senior presidency, despite decent headline growth, median wages for those in the middle and lower classes barely changed. What will you do if elected as president to ensure that rewards from growth actually benefit most people? Secretary Tawney. Secretary Tawney.
Is it another phone call?
No, sorry, I had to let my dog out. How would I? Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. What will you do if elected president to ensure that rewards from growth actually benefit most people?
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. My internet is being trashed. Let me leave and rejoin.
All right. We'll go.
Should I?
Yeah, we'll go to Representative Terry first then.
Okay, so okay. So we need to ensure that the working class people can get at least a chunk of what they deserve. All right, they haven't been being rewarded for what they really created. All right. As representative, I helped write a bill that would mandate 25% profit sharing with Dave Terry. I think that should be increased to 35% if the bill passes. I think mandated profit sharing will really help our American workers grow and have a better livelihood. Along with that, I also support a guaranteed income to help give workers a better chance and a better position at the negotiation table with their bosses so they can negotiate for better wages. And also, I support incentivizations for worker cooperatives, which would increase wages and increase salaries for so many workers who are in those worker cooperatives. Thank you.
All right. Same question to Secretary Rabe.
Do you think Jacob can speak first? Because he was supposed to speak first originally. I'll let him
Yes,
speak first.
I can now hear you clearly. Can I go? Okay. Ben, may I go?
Yes, I said yes.
Oh, sorry, I did not hear that.
All good.
I'm definitely in support of the things that Grover and Dave have done with the worker co-ops, profit sharing, things like that. As president, I would definitely consider those things, and I definitely have meetings with advisors, members of cabinet to look into those things and to enact those things to benefit our workers and to overall benefit our businesses.
All right, thank you. And Secretary Rabe.
All right. Well, I think first of all, when we talk about increasing wages, I think we can go back to the last question, talking about the minimum wage, where I said I supported a $100 minimum wage. I think that's a good first step to increase wages. And then another step is profit sharing. I think we should go from 25% to, at least 100% profit sharing, because the profits are American profits, and we all deserve them. And then finally, yes, we should also have a guaranteed minimum income. $100 minimum wage is roughly $200,000 a year, so I'd say that's a good spot for the guaranteed income. That might sound pie in the sky, but really, if we just take a little bit of the money from the very top, we can pay for all of this.
All right. Thank you. The next question is going to be a lightning one. I'm giving you all 30 seconds to answer this question. All right. So this is a very short question. So we will start with Secretary Tawney because he was supposed to start last time. What do you consider to be the biggest, or let me rephrase that. What do you consider to be the greatest geopolitical and national security threat to the United States going forward?
I believe the biggest threat at this time is the threat of getting involved in foreign policy situations that would lead us to a war, that would allow us to put our economy back into shambles and to have innocent people killed overseas. So that is the biggest threat at this time, is foreign policy.
All right, same question to you, Representative Terry.
For one, we have to look at unfair market practices as a geopolitical enemy. We have to look at unfair market practices by our own corporations and by corporations from other countries, especially from China and other countries that engage in unfair market practices and unfair trade practices. So yeah, that's my position.
And Secretary Rabe.
The biggest threat to our country?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the biggest geopolitical or national security threat to the United States of America
Yes,
going
that
forward?
would be the country of Liechtenstein. See, Liechtenstein, despite being a very small country, they've already proven they can cause international tension. They caused a big incident with Switzerland, I think in 2007. And, they're a very small country, and it's very impressive what they've been able to do. We don't know what else they have up their sleeves.
All right. Thank you. Oh, shoot. I lost my questions. 1 second. I'll just be 1 second. I just got to get them back up. All right. The next question. What concrete proposals do you have to ensure our energy independence as a nation? So, in other words, how do you specifically plan to achieve energy independence, if you plan to achieve it at all? Secretary Rabe, I apologize. You're first on this one.
Okay, well, I think America has a very good track record on independence. I think we need to write a declaration of energy independence when I'm elected president, and essentially, this would put us on a pathway to energy independence. We will move back to coal and steam engines and all that good stuff that made us so great 200 years ago.
Same question to Secretary Tawney.
I believe we need to invest into new forms of energy, like renewable energy especially. The age of coal, in my opinion, is declining, and more coal places are being shut down. But that does not mean that more and more of our workers have to be out of work. All we have to do is invest, we have to train, and we have to work harder to make sure that people who have worked in the coal sector, oil sector, and other natural gas sector and stuff like that way they can join the green energy sector. I in no way am saying that we need to get coal miners out of work. But as more and more plants close down due to economic reasons, or to the reason that coal is becoming less and less sustainable as a business, we need to retrain them to work in different sectors of green energy to make sure that not only our workers still have jobs, but that America is relying on green energy that can also combat climate change.
Thank you. And Representative Terry, same question to you.
Best way to achieve energy independence is to invest heavily in carbon capture, nuclear energy, wind and solar, and geothermal and hydroelectric energy. Thank you.
Great. The next question is about continuing on the same topic as I was talking about earlier, geopolitical threats. It has been reported today that Russian jets flew over Estonia in what the EU and Baltic leaders are calling a gross violation of Estonian sovereignty and Baltic security. The Russian jets flew over Estonian airspace in a drill which Russian leaders are describing as precautionary security measures. How would you respond to an issue such as this as president? Secretary Tawney.
As I said in my opening statement, in no way would us as a country and us as a government allow things like this to continue. I would speak with Vladimir Putin, and I would tell him that this will no longer continue. We're not going to risk more and more people being hurt by his reign of terror upon these Eastern European nations. And I would also like to meet with the leader of Estonia to talk about what we can do. But I would not go in guns blazing to try and attack Russia. I would go diplomatically. I would meet with him, and I would speak with him about how we can stop doing things like this and how we can actually fix Europe, not when it comes to foreign policy, and which can also hopefully allow for us to possibly open up a new relationship and enter into new agreements when it comes to trade and other things. All we have to do is we just have to talk with people. What we don't attack them right off the bat. We don't do that. That's not how you build relationships. That's not how you build new agreements. You meet with them. You talk with the people. You learn the culture, and then you can start enacting new trade things, new agreements, and that is how we will in these
Thank you.
situations like what happened today.
Thank you, Secretary Tawney. Representative Terry, same question to you.
Jacob Tawney makes a lot of fair points. I think that we shouldn't just go in there looking for war. I think we should talk to the Estonian leaders and the Russian leaders directly and try to work this out diplomatically, and look for every single way we can fix this problem without having to go to sanctions or war. So if I am president, I will like to directly speak to the leadership of both Estonia and Russia to help solve this issue. Thank you.
And Secretary Rabe, same question to you.
All right. Well, unlike one of the candidates up here, I'm a consistent non-interventionist. I believe Russia is responsible for Russia and Estonia is responsible for Estonia. We have no business in that area. And okay. And what else I'd like to say is that I don't think this is like totally unjustified by Russia. The Baltics have been treating Russians as second-class citizens to the point where the Russian citizens in those areas are so desperate for independence that they are working with governments that they know are bad and that they usually would not work with, but they're so desperate for independence that they have to. So, like, boo-hoo, Russia violated Estonian airspace. Really, who cares? Why do we have to get involved? It's not our responsibility.
All right. Thank you, Secretary Rabe. We're winding down our debate now. There's not going to be too many more questions. So I will, this is one of our final questions here. There's still a few more after this, but this is one of our final ones, just letting you know that we're in the final stretch. So this question is about education. As you guys know, an important part of our society is education. According to a report published by the U.S. News and World Report, among many others who basically give the same results, of the top 10 colleges and universities in the world, 8 are American. The other 2 are Oxford and Cambridge in the United Kingdom. So clearly the U.S. has very good universities. But the biggest question and problem here is affordability of such universities and colleges. What is your plan to tackle sky-high college and university prices? That goes to Secretary Tawney.
Well, I would like to first meet with the deans, the presidents of these universities, and talk with them about how we can work and negotiate lowering tuition prices. I know that it's hard sometimes to when you're in a situation where your economic class isn't too good. I know it's hard for people to go out and be able to pay for their college, be able to get a good education without having to rack up student debt. I know it's hard to go out there and say, I want to go to college, mom, and I want to go to college, mom, and your mom says, we can't afford it. I understand that struggle from everyday Americans. No matter if you're from Los Angeles, if you're from Manchester, New Hampshire, every single person faces this struggle. As president, I want to end this struggle. I want to be a president for the college students out there, for the high school students, for the elementary students who say, I want to go to medical school one day and I want to become one of the greatest doctors in American history, and I want to help people. I understand that struggle, and as president, I'm going to strive every single day to work to end tuition, to end high tuition costs, to work to make sure that we move forward an education system where not only the rich can get the best. That is not what our America should stand for, and it's not what I will push for as president.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Tawney. Secretary Rabe, the same question goes to you.
All right. Well, that was a nice word salad, Jacob. But my opinion on colleges, honestly, is that they are filled with political correctness, and really, it's a lot of kids who are not really necessarily going to be the most productive for society. If you're getting a gender studies degree, I don't see why the government should pay for getting that when really there's no value being added to society. And I think, yeah, if somebody's going to go and do that, then yeah, have high tuition costs, because then the university will make the money and pay a good bunch of that into salaries and create a lot of jobs from that. So I really don't see the problem with high tuition. I think we can continue lowering tuition for technical and vocational schools, but for college, I'm fine with it.
Oh, I apologize. And Representative Terry, same question to you.
The simple answer is just make college tuition free. And I know this isn't really the most popular answer for many people in MEC, but I just think it's the best solution. One of the main concerns that I hear with among my constituents is that it's unaffordable. We can easily pay for a tuition-free public university, four-year public university college plan by taking the profits created by the Federal Reserve, that is $80 to $100 billion every year, that is not accounted for in the MEC budget. We can take that money and we can invest it in public tuition-free colleges and universities. So I think that tuition-free college is our future, and it's what we should do to ensure that our children and our students can have a better life and succeed in our future. Thank you.
All
Can
right.
I have a respectful rebuttal?
Yes, you may. 3 seconds.
Okay. Well, Grover, I'd like to respectfully ask about your plan. Would it mean that taxpayers would be paying for gender studies degrees?
Well, no, because the profits would be
I mean, not the taxpayers, the profits from the Federal Reserve. Would that be going to paying for people's gender studies degrees?
potentially, yeah. I mean, a lot of people like to insult gender studies degrees, but I mean, it really can be helpful. And most people who take gender studies degrees aren't taking it for it to be their future career. They're taking it for extra knowledge. So.
All right. Well, thank you for having a respectful conversation
Thank
with
you.
me. You seem to be a lot better at this than another candidate on stage.
All right, thank you. We're gonna move right past that. And since we're talking about, I think this is a good segue to get into gender identity. So, in recent years, in real life, we've seen states such as Massachusetts have ballot measures go up to vote for the public to vote on. And I'm not talking about specifically ballot measures. I'm just talking in general. So they voted on whether to add the words gender identity to the list of characteristics you could not be discriminated against in public accommodations. So my question to the candidates: should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? Secretary Rabe, you go first.
I mean, of course it should, but because our LGBT people are already discriminated against enough. But I've taken action in Congress to address this. I wrote 2 bills, the LGBT Judicial Equality and Medical Equality Act, which reduced the amount of bias in our systems against LGBT people. But another concern I have is that at my school, I actually go to a school in Massachusetts, Brookline, Massachusetts, Beaver Country Day School. And here, they changed the bathrooms from male and female to unisex and female because they decided that they want to include people, but at the same time, they don't. They want to make sure it's the men who have to be inclusive and not the women. So I'm okay with this as long as it's not sexist.
Okay. Secretary Tawney, same question to you.
I definitely believe that anti-discrimination laws should include gender identity. But as Representative Rabe says, if we're going to take action and actually do things when it relates to things like bathrooms and such, you can't just exclude men. That's sexist in itself. It's completely defeating the purpose of being anti-sexist. So I would want to examine these laws and see the exact result of them. What would be changed, anti-discrimination, especially in our school systems and bathrooms and stuff like that, to make sure that it's not sexist towards anyone and to make sure that it truly is anti-discrimination.
And Representative Terry, same question.
Simple answer, yes, of course, gender identity should be protected.
All right, well, thank you. This will be, I believe, the second last question, and then we'll have closing statements. So just to be aware of that. The UN High Commission for Human Rights report on Venezuela was published last month. Based on research conducted last year, the report, quote, highlights direct patterns of violations directly and indirectly affecting all human rights. So it offers a list of recommendations that the Venezuelan government should act on immediately. What is your approach to the current humanitarian and geopolitical crisis we face in Venezuela, and how do you plan to solve it as president? Secretary Tawney, this goes to you. Oh, I apologize, Secretary. I'm sorry, Secretary Rabe. This is for you first. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Well, unlike another candidate on the stage, I am a consistent non-interventionist, and that extends to Venezuela. Venezuela is for the Venezuelans, and if the Venezuelans want to change the government, that is their responsibility, not our responsibility. I support no involvement in the conflict. Thank you.
If I may, Secretary, they have the. I think the concern is that with that is that they've had an election that many people are saying was a sham, and that they wasn't fairly conducted. I think that's basically the consensus. So how that's all fine and good that they should have a decision, but obviously they haven't been given
an election. You know, in the United States, when we weren't allowed to vote and we were part of the British, we declared our independence. We fought a war, and unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes. But that was us taking responsibility and not needing foreign countries to get involved.
So, are you suggesting that Venezuela should have a civil war, or?
I'm saying that they don't need other countries sticking their noses in a conflict they don't belong in.
All right, fair enough. Representative Terry, the same question goes to you.
Well, I think we need a non-interventionist approach to this. I think that if the election was a sham, I would like to work with the UN and with Venezuela to, look into this and, make sure that the people that the Venezuelans elected is actually the one that's taking power. However, I don't think we should be spreading propaganda, trying to do a coup and doing all sorts of evil things as the real life Trump administration is doing. I don't think we should take a militant approach to this. I think we should take a suggestive and diplomatic approach to this.
And Secretary Tawney, this one goes to you as well.
I definitely believe that we need to take a diplomatic approach, and I'd actually be open to a state visit to Venezuela to see the situations currently going on, so that way we can have a better understanding of how we can move forward diplomatically and not just assume things. So I believe we need to work with Venezuela to have, we don't need a regime change war, but we need to work with the United Nations and with Venezuela to implement a government that will be of, by, and for the people.
All right. So this is going to be the last question, and then we will have our closing remarks. So here's the question. This is pretty straightforward. I'm going to ask you to keep it under 2 minutes, and then we're going to have our closing statements. What makes you the best person on this very stage to be our next president. What makes you uniquely qualified to make the Oval Office your office? In addition, what will the basic principles of your administration be? Secretary Rabe, you go first.
Okay, feels like I've gone first quite a few times, but let's see. What makes me uniquely qualified? Well, I'll say that what makes me uniquely qualified is that my policies reflect a new America that's a real change from what others want. You know, a lot of presidents tend to, advocate small changes and wada, but my platform has some big changes, both physically and in other ways. But I think that was what makes me uniquely qualified, and what will make the office my own. I think is that you can see in my platform all the plans I have to reform the country and change the country.
Thank you, Secretary Rabe. The same question goes to Secretary Tawney.
I believe that I am qualified to take on this job because I am one of the most effective legislators in MAC and I have in my whole career. I fought every single day of my career in the Congress and in the cabinet to meet and work for Americans. I've written over 60 pieces of legislation, all come from the heart, all take real action in supporting our students, our families, our elderly, and they prioritize things that we Americans hold dear, like safe and secure schools, our veterans and how they're treated, our environment, things like this. I have the determination to lead this country, and I have the record to lead this country, because I actually care about this country. And on day one, I believe that I will hold the office of President of the United States accountable. I will be a president for everyone. I will hold town halls. I will hold meetings with my advisors and listen to them, because I'm going to be a president that will work for the people and that will work for everyone, no matter the economic or social stance. That is the kind of person I am. That's the kind of president that I'll be.
Thank you, Secretary Tawney. And the same question goes to Representative Terry.
Well, I believe I'm the best man for the job simply because I feel like I'm, the best candidate who will truly represent what the people want and believe. I want to listen to what people have to say. I want to push for more direct democracy in our current system. I want to make sure that everyone can have a voice and say what they want to say and be heard by me. I also have a good history as a negotiator. I helped renegotiate NAFTA. I helped lower drug prices, or lower patent periods, which would lower drug prices. So I've experienced in negotiation. I think that I truly care about the working class. I tend to think I know a lot about taxation, and I have an extensive knowledge on taxation and trade and healthcare policy. So I know a lot of the concerns that the American people have, and I know how to fix a lot of them. And along with that, I think that I will listen, or I know I will listen to the American people and what they have to say. So thank you.
All right. Now it is time for your 1 minute and 30-second closing statements. This is the one part of the debate with the addition of the opening statements in which no rebuttals are allowed. So we will start off with Secretary Rabe. Your 1 minute and 30 seconds.
No, I've gone
statement.
first 4 times in a row. That's going to change. I've gone first the 4th time in a row. I've gone first.
Okay, fair enough. Representative Terry.
Thank you all for listening today. It means a lot to me that you all watched here tonight. I'm glad you could make it. I'd like to give a special thanks to Jakob and Logan, as well as Dave and Ben and Kenneth and Mex C-SPAN, aka Matthew Sorrells, for hosting this, as well as, again, you all for watching this. I think we can truly make changes in our government when everyone is united together. We can really make a difference when we fight back and demand change. That is why I'm running for president. I want to make a difference that will truly help our nation. Thank you.
All right, Secretary Rabe.
All right. Yeah. So I'd like to thank everyone here. Thank everyone on the call. Thank Mex C-SPAN. I don't know how they do it, but they're the first competent live streamer in MEC, I think, in just my opinion. And I want to thank all the moderators who weren't here to see the end of this debate. I think this was a very productive debate. We really learned about all the candidates' positions, and now that the ballots are open, I just have one request: do not vote for Jakob Tawney. You can vote for me, you can vote for anyone else, but do not vote for Jakob. He has proven himself to be unqualified during this debate, and that is my one wish. Thank you.
All right, and Secretary Jakob Tawney, your 1 minute and 30-second closing statement.
First, thank you, Ben, for moderating. I don't know how you can deal with all this, especially from other candidates today. Folks, this was...
I think Jakob means himself when he talks about dealing with candidates.
Okay, sorry. What I was saying before I was interrupted by my family. Sorry, let me think. What I was saying. Thank you for watching today. From those who are here in North Carolina and those who are watching on their television or YouTube or streaming services. Tonight we talked about a large range of policies which we had fights over, which we agreed on. But to take out tonight is not agreement. What we need to take out of tonight is that we all have three different visions for this country. I believe that my vision is the best for this country because I have a proven record to show for my vision, and I have proven policy to show for my vision. I have 34 pages in my platform of cold, hard policy, of cold, hard results, of cold, hard record. I believe that I should have the opportunity to serve as your next president because I am dedicated to each and every one of you. If you don't vote for me, I really don't care because as your president, I'm not going to care what your electoral history is. I'm not going to care who you voted for. I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to answer your questions. And I may even want you to advise me on some things. So what I ask you all for your vote. Can I finish real quick? I ask you all for your vote. And you're voting tomorrow because I believe we can truly advance America fair when we work together, when we fight together, and when we legislate together. Thank you.
Well, thank you, all three of you.
Thank you so much for hosting this, Ben.
So
thank you, Matthew.
Just hold on just a moment. So I want to thank all three of you for participating in the debate. That brings us to the end. I want to thank C-SPAN for hosting our debates. We want to thank our university here that is hosting us here tonight. So a big thanks to Winston-Salem Fairgrounds Annex in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Now the decision is up to you, mock election community. So while people have voted already, today is election day and tomorrow you can vote. So get out and vote. One thing everyone here can agree on is that we all hope that you get out and vote. So it is one of the honors that we get as a nation. So thank you and good night.